The snow fell like it remembered sorrow. Each flake drifted down with quiet purpose, settling gently over the rooftops, burying pine branches, softening the cracked sidewalks of a mountain town long untouched by time. Maple Ridge didn't change much. Not its people, not its silence, not the weight of its winters. Most folks stayed tucked indoors, waiting out the cold beside fireplaces and familiar comforts. But not him. Max didn't belong to anyone anymore. The aging German Shepherd moved with steady, deliberate steps. His muzzle was frosted with gray, his gait stiff but proud. He bore no collar, no tags, no owner's voice calling from a porch. Yet he walked with the clarity of purpose as if the map of the town lived in his bones. He had a place to be. At the edge of town, past the shuttered general store and the frozen creek where children no longer played, stood an old cemetery. Iron gates flanked its entrance, groaning on rusted hinges. Whenever the wind sighed through, Max nosed them open without hesitation. No one stopped him. No one ever did. He padded across the snow-blanketed graves until he reached the simple stone marker. Daniel Grant, a name etched in quiet reverence. A father, a soldier, a police officer. 3 years ago to the day he was taken from this world. In the line of duty. And for 3 years since, Max returned without fail. Without fanfare. People in Maple Ridge had long stopped asking questions. From their windows, they watched the old shepherd sit beside the grave, unmoving, unbothered by the cold, like a sentry guarding something sacred. He never barked. He never howled. He just waited. This year, though, something was different. Max lifted his gaze to the gray sky above, not in longing, but because the air had changed. The cold still bit, but beneath it lingered something else. Something heavy. A stillness that wasn't meant to last. He didn't know what it was, only that it was coming. And this time, he wouldn't walk away. Max had barely reached the hills. Crest, cemetery behind him when the wind shifted again. A sharp gust swept down the slope. But it wasn't the wind that made him stop, it was movement. A flicker of shadow where there should be none. A breath in the silence. Then, footsteps. Man and a young girl came into view, crunching softly through the snow. The man walked fast, almost dragging the girl with him. She wore a red coat too thick for her frame, her mittens trailing behind her like they'd slipped halfway off. Her boots were oversized, clumsy, second-hand things. Max narrowed his eyes. Man spoke sharp, low words the dog didn't understand, but the girl didn't respond. Her hand was in his, but her body resisted just enough to be noticed by anyone paying attention. Not enough to be called out. Enough to be concerning. And then she turned. Just once. It wasn't a long look. Not dramatic. But her eyes found Max's, and they locked quiet and still. There was something ancient in that glance. Not panic. Not a plea. A quiet, learned kind of fear. The kind that knows not to cry or run, but to survive by staying small, silent, and unnoticed. Max froze. His ears tilted back. His stance shifted. The sensation that once helped him detect bombs in desert sand now surged inside him again. He felt it in his chest, in his spine. A child in danger. A signal clearer than any command. A call older than language. He didn't limp anymore. His steps grew faster. Max turned, not away. Toward her. Emily lost her mother when she was 7. It hadn't been sudden. Cancer doesn't crash into your world, it seeps in, slow, quiet, like fog slipping under doorways. Her mother faded a little more each week until the house itself seemed to shrink, every corner echoing with absence. The funeral, Emily's world collapsed to 2 people, herself and her father, Ethan. He tried. He really did. He cooked pancakes for dinner when the evenings felt too heavy. He scribbled notes on napkins with crooked hearts and silly jokes to make her smile. But grief is a long road. And Ethan grew tired. The kind of tired that settles in your bones. The kind that changes how a man holds a coffee mug, how he stares out a window. Then came Sarah. She didn't bring noise or chaos. She brought something else entirely control, and Emily never saw it coming. She brought comfort. A calm voice, warm hands, hugs that felt just enough. Not too long, not too forced. After months of emptiness in the house, her presence felt like sunlight finally peeking through a broken window. Emily missed her mother every day. But she couldn't anyhow. Sarah filled in the silence. She listened, remembered birthdays, made her dad smile again. Slowly, Emily started to believe maybe this was what her mom would have wanted, for her to beloved again. Then came David. Sarah introduced him as her younger brother, a traveler full of stories and silly jokes. He treated Emily like a little sister, gave her a necklace on her birthday, let her pick music in the car. She liked him. So did Ethan. So when they mentioned a special road trip just for her, Emily lit up. A cross-country journey with Uncle David. Just the two of them. A break from routine. A gift before the holidays. She packed her favorite books, snacks, Evan brought a journal to write about every stop. She hugged her father tight at Thebes station, promising to send photos. He kissed her forehead, eyes soft with trust. David waved. Playfully. Everything seemed fine until the motel. That night, Emily got up quietly to use the bathroom. The hallway was dim, walls thin. That's when she heard David's voice low. Cold, nothing like before. She's asleep. Ethan signed the papers. 2 more days and she's gone. We fly out and never come back. Sarah gets it all. Emily froze. Gone. What did that mean? Her heart raced. Her mind tried to make sense of it, but the words hung there heavy and sharp. She tiptoed back to their room, slipped under the covers, eyes open in the dark. Something was very wrong. The morning air was thin and sharp, slicing through Emily's jacket as he stepped into the cold. David walked ahead, speaking casually about breakfast and road maps. She nodded, said nothing. Inside, her thoughts still echoed with the words she'd heard the night before. She'd disappear quietly. Sarah gets it all. Emily kept her face calm, her steps light. She couldn't afford a mistake. Not yet. As they crossed the street, something caught her attention. A dog, big, silent, moving along the edge of snow-covered sidewalk. His coat was dark, with flecks of white. His posture uproud, though time had weighed on his limbs. Max had just come from the cemetery. His path was routine, his day quiet until he saw her. He stopped mid-step. His eyes met Emily's, deep brown, alert, intelligent. There was no reason to look twice, and yet he didn't look away. Emily didn't smile. She didn't flinch. She held his gaze steady. Searching, uncertain. Something passed between them. Not words, not fear, recognition. Max took a single step forward. David opened the door and gestured, "Come on, kiddo." Emily hesitated for the briefest moment, then walked in. Behind her, Max moved. He crossed the road with purpose, slow and silent. He stopped just outside a glass door, ears forward, watching the girl who hadn't called him, but hadn't turned away either. He didn't know her, but he knew something was wrong. Max didn't move far once Emily and David stepped inside. He circled the edge of the building, snow crunching softly beneath his paws, and positioned himself just outside a tall window facing the corner booth. He lay down, not to rest, but to watch, his chest low to the ground, ears forward, eyes locked. He saw everything. Emily sat stiff in her seat. David was relaxed, chatting with the waitress, smiling like any friendly uncle. But Max saw through it. He watched the way Emily's fingers clenched around her mug, how her niece never stopped bouncing. Under the table, she was scared. Emily kept glancing at the window. Her heartbeat drummed in her ears. She couldn't breathe fully. She didn't know what to do. The clock on Thule seemed frozen. Though time felt like it was slipping through her fingers. Then she remembered. Her mom once told her, "Dogs are smarter than we know. A trained dog doesn't need to hear you cry. They'll know before you speak." So Emily made a choice. She slowly lifted one hand from under the table, making sure David's eyes were elsewhere. She opened at her palm wide, 5 fingers, then folded her thumb in. The other 4 fingers remained straight, 1 beat. Then she curled all the fingers down, trapping the thumb inside. A signal one Max had seen before in war zones, in hostagedrals, in chaos. Max recognized the sign instantly. Trained instinct guided him. Max stood, his ears shot back, his body tensed. Then he let out a loud, sharp bark once, then again, directed straight at David. Inside, heads turned. David frowned and leaned toward the window. "What's with that mutt?" he muttered. "Get lost," he barked, standing again, waving his arms toward the glass. Waitress stepped over. "Sir, do you want me to call animal control?" "Please," David scoffed. "He's disrupting my niece's lunch." Max didn't move, didn't blink through the glass. He was still watching Emily. She stared back just long enough to feel something break loose inside her. She had been hard. Max didn't budge. Even after David waved his arms and the waitress moved to make a call, Max remained frozen outside the window. His breath fogged the glass. His eyes never left Emily. Inside, David grumbled, "Damn mutt's got a screw loose," and slid back into the booth. He sipped his coffee, but his eyes darted to the window, morphed to now. Emily stirred her drink, eyes down, but her chest felt lighter. Max had seen her, and now he wasn't leaving. After a few more minutes, the waitress returned, phone still in hand. "Animal control says it'll take a while. Road sare, I see." David rolled his eyes. "Whatever. Let's just finish and go." Emily didn't answer. She only looked up and said Max was gone, but not far. Max had turned away from the diner, not out of defeat, but purpose. His paws kicked up snow as he bolted down the sidewalk, turning corners with practiced instinct. He knew this town, knew where to go. The police station wasn't far. Inside, Officer Thomas Hayes, Daniel's former partner and longtime friend, sat behind the desk. He was scribbling a report when he heard scratching at the door. Then a bark, sharp, familiar. Thomas frowned. He walked to the front, opened F's door, and there Max stood, breathing hard, eyes bright with urgency. "Max," he whispered. It had been over a year since Max last showed up. The dog never came unless something was wrong. Thomas crouched, rubbed his ears gently. "Hey, buddy, you okay?" Max barked again, turned, took a few steps, stopped, and looked back. Thomas didn't hesitate. Had grabbed his coat and keys and followed. Max broke into a trot, looking back every few seconds to make sure Thomas was close. By the time they arrived, Fiedner was quiet but empty. Max's nose twitched. He circled the snow, then took off running again. To the station, no, the bus depot. Thomas jumped into the car and followed Max down icy roads, tires crunching with urgency. Near the back lot of the town's small bus terminal, Max stopped. There they were. David, standing stiff, holding Emily's shoulder lightly like a leash made off fingertips. Max growled. Thomas stepped out, hand near his badge. "Hey," he called. David turned calm as ever. "Oh, hey, officer. Everything okay?" Max didn't stop barking. And Thomas knew Max never barked without Arieson. Thomas gently guided David and Emily into the station. "Sir, you'll need to step into the interview room," he said. David nodded, composed. "Of course, officer." "Just routine," he hissed. Thomas merely nodded. Emily walked beside them, calm and collected. She didn't flinch when she was led to another room. She carried herself with quiet confidence, as if she'd known all along this might happen. David followed Thomas into the interview room, still wearing a confident smile. He stroked Emily's shoulder before he left. "Just relax, kiddo. It'll be over soon," Hesed. Emily nodded once, just like her father, cool, calm, in control. Emily was escorted into a small, softly lit room. A female officer offered her warm cocoa and a blanket. "Here," she said kindly. Emily accepted, sipped slowly, still measured. She set the cup down and looked up, eyes clear and steady. Max patted in and lay down beside her care. He watched her like a silent sentinel. Emily reached out, laying a hand gently on his head. She closed her eyes for a moment and left calm anchor. Thomas opened the door gently and stepped inside, clipboard in hand. "Emily," he began, keeping his voice low and calm. "I know you've been through a lot. I just need to ask, has anything unusual happened? Anything you want to share?" She paused, eyes flicked to Max as if drawing strength. Emily didn't answer immediately. She stared at the table, then glanced at the steaming cup of cocoa in front of her. Her finger stressed its rim absently, but then her eyes drifted slowly, quietly to Max. He wasn't moving, just watching her, calm and steady like he had all the time in the world. Emily took a breath, and then, as if pulled by something unspoken, she reached out and laid her hand on Max's head. Her fingers tightened just slightly. Then she looked up at Thomas. "There's something he heard," she said. Thomas tilted his head patient. Emily's voice was soft but firm. "David said, they're going to send me away, far away, so no one would find me." Thomas straightened slowly. The air in the room shifted. "That was enough. Hadn't need more for now." He nodded. "Thank you, Emily. We're going to look into this right away." Outside, wheels of justice began to turn. By midday, Thomas and his team had pieced together Emily's testimony, Max's silent warning, and David's own words. Warrants were served for Sarah and David's phones, their messages, even their travel plans. Each clue fit together until any doubt faded. Late afternoon, there was a knock on Sarah's door. She answered, finding surprised. Thomas and two officers announced their presence. As she and David were escorted out, she stared at Emily, fear flickering in her eyes for the first time. Inside the station, Sarah and David watched the evidence laid before them. The voicemail recording of David's conversation, the flight bookings, their changing story, all undeniable. Yet David remained impassive, while Sarah broke first, tears spilling as she realized their scheme had unraveled. Thomas called Emily in with Max by his side. Emily stood small but unshaken. Sarah looked at her, voice trembling. "Emily, please. We didn't mean." She began. Emily held up her hand, not innocence, but in declaration. "You lied. You planned to take me away." Her voice carried a calm resolve beyond her years. Sarah's face went blank. David lowered his eyes. Thomas stepped forward. "This meeting is over. Evidence speaks louder than words." The judge later remanded Sarah and David without bail, citing clear intent to abduct and fraud. Theckertrum was hushed as Emily and Thomas exited, Max right behind her. Outside, sunlight slanting through the courthouse stone felt like truth finally breaking through. Ethan met them at the door, tears in his eyes as he pulled Emily into a hug. He looked at Max, eyes wet, voice thick. "Thank you, boy." Emily stroked Max's head. "He saved me." Her words were simple, but held all fluid of what had happened. Weeks passed quietly after Sarah and David were arrested. Life began to settle again. Spring came early that year. Light spilled over the mountains. melting the snow and softening the edges off the town's quiet grief. One Saturday morning, Ethan gently nudged Emily awake. "Come on," he said with a smile. "There's someone we should visit." They drove through the sleepy roads until they reached a familiar house just outside town, the temporary shelter where Max had been staying with Tom Mass since the incident. Max greeted them with a low bark and slow tail wag, his steps heavier now, but his eyes still bright. "Hey there, buddy," Ethan said, crouching to scratch Ben Max's ears. Emily knelt down quietly beside the dog. She smiled. "Did you miss us?" Max nudged her hand, then looked up toward the car, ears tilted with quiet curiosity. "We're taking you somewhere," Ethan added. "Somewhere I think you've been wanting to go." They drove again, this time toward the Hillside Cemetery. Thomas met Themthere, already waiting by the gate, hands tucked into his coat. Max recognized him immediately and trotted forward, tail wagging. "Just once. Evan always came here," Thomas said as they walked toward a quiet grave. Even after Daniel passed, every year, same day, same time, he never forgot. They stood before the simple headstone. Emily reached out to brush the dust off Daniel's name, then looked to Max, stood silent, still as if remembering. Thomas crouched down beside Max. "Daniel was a good man. You were his shadow." Max sat, breathing slow. Emily knelt beside him and leaned in close. "Would you like to come home with us, Max?" She extended her small hand. For a long second, Max didn't move. Then, with the same quiet certainty he had shown the day he followed her from the diner, he pressed his head gently into her palm. Emily smiled and clipped a soft leash to his collar. From the cemetery gate, Ethan watched silently, opened the car door. Max didn't hesitate. Together, they walked back, Emily holding the leash lightly, Max walking in perfect step beside her. As they drove away from the cemetery, the sun broke through the clouds and spilled light across the road ahead. Max turned his head once, looking out the window toward the mountains. Then he settled down between Emily and Ethan. Home wasn't just a place. It was a choice, and today, Max chose to.